Hello, everyone. My name is Zane Allen. I'm a principal technologist here with Pure Storage. Thank you for tuning in. And today we're going to dive into why using Pure Storage with Veeam to build a resilient two-site architecture is a game changer. First off, I'd like to clear something up. I'm a believer that data protection isn't just some extra layer, some separate thing, but rather it is an essential part of a solid IT architecture. Well-structured IT setup naturally includes effective data protection. It just makes sense. Your job as an IT professional is to keep the services and data online and working for the business or the organization that it supports. I also believe it comes down to about 3 different factors. First of all, speed. Your data needs to be online and accessible exactly when and where it is required. Your job is to keep those services and that data working for that organization. If it's not immediately available, speed becomes pointless. Quick recovery is key to minimizing downtime and keeping your businesses running smoothly. Speed also factors in proximity of that data to where it needs to be recovered, right? If I can't get that data to the places the services can consume it, and I have to spend time bringing that data from some faraway location, recovery times increase significantly, and that just blows out of the water the RTOs and RPOs that your business or organization expects for that data. Second is resiliency. Building in guaranteed data recoverability from a range of threats, outages to natural outages to ransomware attacks is paramount, right? Resilient architecture involves replication of data from primary, a DR site, local recovery, DR recovery, and a steadfast data protection strategy that meets those SLAs, RPOs, and RTOs that your organization demands. Not to mention safeguards in there to ensure that that data is available when it's needed, right? For that recoverability, that no other factors can come in and remove that data, change that data, or render it ineffective. And then, of course, simplicity. When we talk about simplicity, it's not just about reducing steps, but also about building in reliability. A system with less manual intervention is less prone to human errors, hands down, and then less likely to fail. Automation, API-driven processes, all ensure environments are intuitive, non-disruptive, and self-healing. Manual processes and complexity only introduce failure points, undermining the resiliency and speed we aim to protect. And I can't stress this enough with customers when I talk to them about building data protection strategies into their architecture. So if we meld these principles into our IT framework, we can create a data protection system that's both robust, straightforward, easy to use, and working when we need it to. That allows us to remove that focus on worrying about things like data availability, the recovery and security, and change that focus to driving business forward with those data and services. So let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. So from here, just want to point this high-level architecture of what I'm going to show in the demo, and then we'll demonstrate how that looks behind the scenes. So in this example, we have a production site and a DR site. Pure is the storage platform, and Veeam is driving the data protection. So I talk about layered recovery, and in this case, you'll have 3 different ways to recover that data. First of all, we start with the production site. So we're not going to keep backup data here. Backup's going to be kind of a daily window, right? Once a day. Long term, something I might keep longer or use for other purposes, or even convert to other systems if I need to, cloud or otherwise. But at the production site, I don't want to lose that recoverability, right? I talk about proximity to the where the data is needed. We don't want to have to always bring data back across the wire, but I also don't want to store it more than I need to. So first, we're going to rely on local snapshots warehoused at that production site. I can use that on the same pool of storage, and with pure snapshot technology, it's instantaneous, and it's the fastest way that I can recover that data. Now, traditionally, that would be at a whole volume, but we'll show how we can improve that once we layer in Veeam. Then we're going to rely on that replication relationship between the production and DR site. So once that snapshot is taken, we can replicate that same data over to the DR site, and we can do the same here, right? We can store snapshots there, and we can keep them for a different period of time, the same amount of time, and where we can have them stored there just as frequently as they are at production site. Now, these can be hourly or whatever we need for those particular applications. In fact, you can separate those into different tiers if needed to. And then the magic comes where we layer in Veeam. And we'll show this in the demo, but once you point Veeam into this scenario, I can not only leverage the power of these snapshots that's built into Pure, but now I can start using them for taking that data and capturing it into another form in the form of a Veeam backup file. In this case, we're going to store it all on the same DR site. And by the way, this DR site is also a recovery site. So now I can maximize that space by allowing the dedupe and compression of that data. Since it's the same data, because I'm going to be sourcing this replica for that Veeam backup, not only will I be able to save on space and be effective on that manner, but you can also see how I'm removing that backup process from impacting anything that's running in production, right? So this is, again, going back to that principle of the job number one is to keep the data online and the services running to drive the business. So this site, I have 1, 2, 3, my backup file, my snapshot of DR, my snapshot of production, and you can see that I have multiple levels of recovery to fit whatever the disaster or the outage may be, right? If it's a single VM, just a piece of data, just some files, just a database, or if it's a whole site, I will be prepared all in one automated motion. And then Veeam can enhance that recovery even one step further. Now that Veeam has understanding of those snapshots sitting on that production platform or that Pure production and DR site, Veeam can go in there and automatically scan and understand that data. And now Veeam can allow me to take that recovery from just whole volume to granular. I can recover single VMs, groups of VMs, database files, whatever I need to from that data from, again, production snaps, DR snaps, or from that backup file. Again, all one motion, all automated, no need to set up anything manually after the initial setup. So let's take a look at that in the software and see how it works behind the scenes. All right, let's start by walking through the components that make up this solution. We're currently logged into the Pure Storage flash array that's hosting our SQL Server VM. You'll see that we've configured a protection group for the volume, which is being replicated to a secondary flash array. So flash array 1 to flash array 2. We also have both Linux and Windows volumes connected. Next, let's head over to VMware. This is the VM that we'll be adding to our backup job. Take note of the tagging here. This is a great way to create policy-based backups that we will use at the Veeam server to define the job. Over on the Veeam server, we simply define the storage infrastructure by installing the plugin and identifying both the primary array, flash array 1, and the replicated array, flash array 2. All you need to do is configure how the arrays are attached, typically via block, providing the credentials for management access, in this case, the default user, and select the protocols in use. You can also scope it down to the exact volumes to be scanned, and that's what the plugin does. It creates instant clones of the volumes, scans them, and detects any VMware data to identify the VMs that can be used for restore. Once this is set up, you don't need to revisit it often. From there, we can begin building the backup jobs. In this example, we got a sample backup job named Replicated FA Snapshot. It already includes one VM, but let's go ahead and add that SQL Server VM that I identified earlier. I'll demonstrate here how the tag-based policies work, which is my preferred and recommended method. As you apply tags to the VMs in vSphere, they're automatically picked up by the backup jobs. You know, set it and forget it workflow. You don't have to go in and make sure that new VMs are added. As long as they're tagged, they'll be added to these backup jobs accordingly. We select the repository, which in this case is mapped to the second array or at our DR site. We set a retention policy, and optionally we can use the GFS or grandfather, father, son for longer term retention like weekly or monthly backups. Now we define the secondary destination. Even though this is a single backup job, we're sourcing it from the replicated snapshot as we discussed earlier. We add or edit the replication pair, set the number of restore points to retain, and make sure it's used as the data source. Right there, double checkbox. Optionally, we can also include primary snapshots. This gives us a local recovery point on the production array. Since this is a SQL Server VM, we'll also enable application-aware backups from those snapshots. We'll do that right here by checking the box and then providing the credentials that allows access into that VM. Since this is a mixed backup job, we're going to go ahead and do the quiesce on the SQL app, but turn it off for that Linux VM. So no need to have separate backup jobs for quiesce, not quiesce. We can mix that in one job. We can run a quick test to verify that setup, make sure the credentials are working and permissions in place before we run the actual job. You'll see the Linux VM fail application-aware processing, which is expected. In fact, we've removed it from that process, but the SQL Server passes, confirming that we are good to go, and I won't see any errors later because of credential access. From here, we just schedule that job. I'm going to run it manually for this demo, and once triggered, we'll watch the job in action. As a job starts, we can see each VM being prepared. I'm going to double click here to open up that floating window. This will include the VMware guest interaction. For example, logging in, this is the piece that logs into the SQL to quiesce the database. It's also going to check things like change block tracking to determine delta changes since the last backup. Since the Linux VM has been backed up before, this is a previously existing job, it will use an incremental backup, but the SQL Server VM is new because we just added it. So we'll do a full backup this time from that replicated snapshot. So it'll assign those resources from the Veeam infrastructure, there is a brief VMware snapshot for consistency. I know this is being backed up from the pure snapshot, but that snapshot will essentially quiesce the VM itself, put it into the state at that point of backup so that you'll get a consistent backup, but you can continue to use that workload in production. Snapshot is going to be very short-lived, just enough to catch a consistent image, so there's no disruption to that production VM. We'll go over and take a look at that here in vSphere, just so we can illustrate removing the VMware snapshot. And again, that's a short-lived VMware snapshot that is only there to make sure that data is consistent while it's in use, while it's still running in production without interrupting that workflow. So at that point, and just to say about the real advantage of this storage integration is that snapshot is not live in production data, which minimizes its impact, right? Won't have stun and things of this nature. So at this point, after that process, it will begin the storage snapshot and the replication to the second array. Veeam uses the pure storage relationship we pointed out earlier. It asks via flash array 1 to take a snapshot, send it to flash array 2, and then it uses that snapshot and really clones it to create a source for that backups. First time backups, that'll be a transfer of a full snapshot, but subsequent backups will only replicate the delta, right? Very efficient. Backup runs, we can go in here and look in the logs and see all that action. You'll see pure vol send and the volume acceptance. This gives you full visibility into what is happening at the array level. It's a seamless integration between pure storage and Veeam, with both APIs working together to deliver efficient, consistent backup. But you can kind of see behind the scenes here. Even if you only need backups at your DR side, you don't have to create backup jobs at the primary and then create backup copy jobs or manually move backup data. Directly backup from that replica. Very simple, very efficient. The backup job will complete as quickly as the assigned proxies can read from that clone snapshot. Right? It's just got to coordinate that replication, that mounting, and as these are just going to be deltas going forward, it's going to be quicker and quicker. But really, the value here is you're taking it out of production and you're letting that backup happen in the background with no impact, at the time that you triggered it. Not to mention there's going to be those 2 snapshots that we'll review on each array. So you're going to have those multiple restore points. So virtually no storage overhead, no impact to production, and you're covered for any restore scenario. You got those 3 layers of data protection, but 2 from very quick snapshot recoveries and that traditional backup file that you can keep longer term or send even off to another site, tier 2 object storage, whatever that need is for your organization. So we're going to let this complete here. As it moves along, we can see all the performances, metrics, and what components are involved. You can even tune how many VMs per snapshot. There's a lot of fine tuning you can do here, but this is just a very simple example. So now that's complete. We'll see these 2 additional snapshots: the production snapshot on flash array 1 and the replicated snapshot on flash array 2, used for the backup. But you'll see you can restore from either one of these. So now you have granular level restore, full VMs, instant VM recovery from either array using that direct snapshot, right? It's been scanned by Veeam. It's able to do the restore. That the application consistent snapshot is complete, right? That's another piece of the value, is storage snapshot, application consistent. Plus we'll have that backup data source from the secondary snap that's sitting there on my repository. Now that can be shared across the same storage array or an additional storage array. So hopefully you can see the value and the power of running Veeam on top of Pure for all your recovery needs. Thank you for watching.